Greetings and welcome back to Circle of Sisters Table Talk Podcast, the spiritual safe space where soul sisters are speaking out and
And
fixing
fixing
crowns
crowns in
in
the
the
process.
process. I am your host, Sacred Woman Practitioner Sherry Unk, alongside my beautiful beloved sister.
Chantel Sierra Kim, your holistic self care coach. We are here today to discuss a hot topic. Let's talk
Hot
about
topic.
it.
Hot off the press, or I should say, hot off the election trail. We are
Yes,
here to confirm, reaffirm that the future is bright.
the
Okay.
future is bright. Yes.
I know that so many of you have been very, very stressed out about this this current election, right? For the last 2 years since they've started on the campaign trail, there has been a lot of shifts within the political parties as far as who's running. And in the bottom of the ninth, we got a surprise edition with our first multicultural president running, um, Kamala Harris. I know
Vice
a lot of,
President who
oh,
has taken the lead,
I
you
say,
know,
I
as
say.
a divine feminine. This is interesting, right?
This is one of those elections where everyone is at the edge of their seat for many different reasons. For many different reasons. Some may be really biting their fingernails, are really afraid of what is to come in the future. And that's why we're here to ease your hearts and mind about what is going on in the world as we know it right now, or in the states for those of you who are here and watching us from America. Today is Election Day, Super Tuesday, as they call it. And everyone is casting their vote for not only the president who will take over as the next president in January of 2025, but also for a lot of measures that are on the ballot that have been very crucial to our society as a whole. There's measures on there in regards to allocations of monies going to different organizations. There's measures on there about the rental crisis that we know we suffer in America, with homelessness being on the rise almost everywhere. So there's some crucial things on there, and there's no other way than to get your voice heard than to cast your vote. So for those of you who are participating in today's election, we thank you, we honor you for participating. But we are here to really just discuss the future. Everyone's always on cringe, on the edge of their seat in regards to the election because of the differences of the candidates and what they're going to do when they're in office. We are dealing with a former president of the United States, Donald Trump, and we've been able to see how he reacted as a president. And we also got a taste of seeing how he reacted when he was not reelected. And so that brings up a little bit of fear and frustration for those voting, because on the other hand, we have a candidate who has, definitely wrapped her rally around the African American community. She is a woman of color, and so having not only a female but a female that is a multicultural female is something that we've never experienced. So there is not only a divide in cultural background, but there's a divide in energy as far as the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and who's going to be
Yes.
running the
Who
country.
will be who will be our next president? That is a really, really interesting question. And taking our opportunity to speak up and speak out about this and seeing our future very bright, regardless of the candidates. It's about really understanding our own individual soul sovereignty first off, and understanding that for me personally, when it comes to the political arena, it's very difficult to navigate it as an individual, right? We have all of the elected officials who really kind of make or break us in the society. So understanding the energy behind that is very, very important. I know as a Black woman, it is very intriguing to think that a woman of color could be running the United States. But then on the other hand, it looks like, when we zoom out, the president is not really the one running the state. Even as Kamala has stepped into that seat as the spokesperson
Intro.
for America, interim, bless the soul of Biden and his healing and his mental health, but to say that he was in that seat as well, and how effective or not effective has he been, or how has Kamala, since taking that seat, how effective or not effective has she been, and I'm really not in the place to take either side currently. I'm just thinking of it all as, wow, this is a time for us as Americans to reclaim our time and reclaim our own sovereignty and reclaim the foundational truth of how America is for the people, supposedly. So, how do the people show up? This will be very interesting to see how the people show up. I've seen, I don't watch the politics very often, and just the little threads that have come across my reel just has been very interesting to watch, interesting to see what the the approach has been to woo the people to one side or another. What is your motivating factor in your vote? What is causing you to vote one way or another? Because both of them have been very vocal about their ideas of what they would do as president. And some of these ideas of pulling the strings of the American people to vote this way are like, can you really do that as the president? I mean, I really didn't think the president has much control over that, but okay, but at the same time, it's like, how am I functioning in this space, right? And then I saw something where Trump was calling for civil unrest. And I'm like, we are unrested already. So, and not to mention the raid on the Capitol, it's like, come on, people, shake yourself, right? Come back into this oneness of what is really best for the people. And really, that goes back to a personal choice. What are you taking as your sole sovereignty? What are you taking as your personal stance to live in America, the land of free, the land of opportunity, the land of this? How are you doing that in your everyday life? Because, one vote doesn't really make a difference when it comes to the Senate, right? The Senate and the electoral college.
See, now you getting into the meat and the potatoes about the whole thing. See, this is where I get excited because I think the conversation around voting has gotten to where we're just telling everyone to vote. And people are aimlessly casting their vote without really understanding how our governmental structure works. And it is great to vote right now in the primaries, the general election. It's great for us to vote now, and get that vote in. However, it's the little city and
Right.
statewide elections that really make the impact here. Because when you vote for your city and state officials, their vote is what creates the electoral college, which is ultimately who dictates our president. I want to touch back though on what you said in regards to soul sovereignty, because this is where, and I really, because Black America was woken up yet again with this election and has really been pushing to get everyone out to vote, young, old, and indifferent, to cast their vote for several of the major issues that we are talking about today, which is the homelessness, where are these funds, these state funds going to, and as well as women reproductive rights. These are all things that are on the ballot this year. So it makes for a very interesting year. But what if we decided to tap within and really started to operate out of our soul sovereignty in order to manifest the reality we want to see? And what that looks like to me is, when I talk to my brothers and my sisters, my melanated beings across the planet, really honestly owning who we are and releasing the narrative and letting go of the narrative of oppression for our people, letting go of the narrative that slavery was our beginnings in this country. Letting go of those narratives are going to be completely important right now as we are shifting. The universe is shifting, the world is shifting. We are awakening to new forms of consciousness every single day. And with this election is bringing on a new state of how we're going to be handling these affairs. And right now is a time for African Americans across the country to wake up and realize that we are sovereign. We are sovereign individuals, and we have power and we do have control, and we are not giving in to the oppression of the colonizers or any group that would try to diminish who we are. This is really where we need to start stepping into that, and I see the future as being bright because so many of us are waking up to that knowledge and that understanding. And it doesn't really matter who takes office in a couple of hours. As long as we know who we are, what we stand for, and what we want to see, that will manifest in our lives as long as we can stay focused on that. If we are still focused on the past pain, the past trauma of what we've endured in this country, we will never be able to see the brightness and the light that the future has to offer for us. And so I'm really pleading with our brothers and sisters across the globe to really step into their own divinity as we approach this new president, and as they take their seat in the proverbial White House, in the Oval Office. As they take their seat, we need to understand who we are and what power we actually hold as individual citizens, if you will, of America.
Right. And it's like, really, it is a shift that has taken place. It is a shift that has taken place. And that shift is something that is going to affect us one way or another as we see politics and the world affecting us every day. Politics is a part of our society, and that is something that can oppress. It is something that can keep us limited. But just as we have rallied together to decide, hey, make your vote count, this is like a rally to make your life count. Allow your light to continue to shine in spite of what or who is in that seat, because we may have an opportunity to truly change America and make America great again. Play on words, not necessarily making America great again, as Trump said, but making America great again because of who we are and how we stand up and how we unite and how we really, truly serve our own individual, collective communities. And with that, making impacts that really will change the vote, change the way we vote. I heard Trump saying something about this may be the last time you ever get to vote. And it's like, okay, if it is, what does that look like? Right? What does it look like if your vote doesn't count, or if your vote doesn't make the difference that you seek to hope it for? And I've always been one to see it as making my vote count by the choices I make, making my vote count by the impact that I'm making personally in my community and in the lives of the people that are around me, and allowing that to be the collective consciousness constantly pouring into each other, not with a spirit of divide and conquer, whether it be a male president, a female president, a black president, or a white president, but really on the issue of humanity being cared for as a whole, treating each other the way we want to be treated, seeing resources being allocated in the places that they need to be allocated for the justice and the safety and security of the American people as a whole. And like you said, we have several communities that are homeless. How often do homelessness come up on the ballot, and really what has been put in place to help that? And the price of gas, that was a big thing. Why is it constantly fluctuating, and why is it not a system in place already to make sure that that is a streamlined staple that is affordable? And I know Kamala mentioned something about grocery prices, but we ain't gonna we're not gonna really go there with but yes, having the groceries being at a rate that is conducive to people being able to afford it. And it's just like, these are prices, these are things that we as individuals can change. It doesn't take a president of the United States. It takes people really seeing that, hey, I have this resource and I can use it to make a living, but also make it affordable. So just really looking at it more of a personal, what can I do to make America
Absolutely.
great again?
Absolutely. And when you ask the question about what can you do, I want to offer some insight into a few things that recently came to my attention as to how us in America, or the American people, have gotten so far off course with self sustainability, right? We rely on the government in particular for a lot of things. Whether you're on government assistance or not, we are relying on the government to make sure there's enough food in the grocery stores, to make sure that there is enough seeds planted in the fields so that we could have certain crop available to us. This is the election where we really have to understand it is about time that we started to become self sufficient. And what that looks like is very different from what we've been taught or conditioned it to look like in America. One of the first things that has been done within our society that really makes us struggle beyond what you would see in other countries is the fact that when you're 18, your parents about pushing you out the door, kicking you out. Where in most cultures around the world, people live in family compounds or family land. And so the wealth is being shared. And so, what I think we're going to see a lot more of in the future is a lot more of communal living. We are going to see a lot more of families banding together and, purchasing together, purchasing land, and really living together off of the land. I think that we are the world, post COVID, our planet has been craving for us to get back to planting crops, for us to get back to doing things in nature. Our bodies have craved it. That's why we've seen so many people post COVID start to slip into depression as they've been forced to go back into the workspace. So I'm excited to see in the future more families banding together to build family compounds to help with living sustainable so that we can reduce the amount of homelessness. I'm looking forward to seeing more education as far as sacred sexuality in the junior highs and high schools so that young girls and boys understand the importance of their life force energy and understand the importance of abstaining or waiting for the right person, so that when they engage and if it results in a child, they're prepared for that, as opposed to feeling like there's, these other things that I can do in order to not have children. And I think that these are the conversations that we need to be having around these crucial topics that tend to come up over and over again throughout history. Is what are we really doing to prevent? You know what I'm saying? Not addressing problems after the fact, but really, where's the prevention team for some of the things that we've been dealing with? And I really think it's just re educating the American people. And so I'm excited that this election has sparked more people to get out and vote and to be curious about voting and what everything means. This year I sat down with my mother and helped her fill out her ballot. She was like, okay, well, what is this saying? What does this mean? Because the terminology, is very confusing. You don't know if a yes is yes and a no is no with some of these measures. And I think that this is what really tends to confuse the American people. So many of us stay away from it. I remember back in the days, Maxine Waters used to send out a little booklet that told you what to vote for. Literally, it'll say A for this. It'll say yes for this, no for this, yes for this. This year, that didn't happen. And I think it was because so many people were voting based on that ballot and really casting their vote away because they didn't really know what they were voting for. So I'm excited to see. I do believe our future is bright because so many people are coming into the consciousness of sovereign living and really living self-sustainable, what self-sustainability really means. And as we push closer to that, there won't be any fear of what the president's going to do or who's going to be in office, because you've learned how to really manage and govern your own self. And I think that's the problem we're lacking in our society, is no one is self-governing. If we can
Oh,
start to
that's
self-govern, then we can get a lot further as a whole.
That's exactly what I was thinking, and when you think of that and think about what ways do you govern yourself. You said before at the beginning that, we as American people are often looking for the government to make the decision, to give you what you need. But what happens when that doesn't align with what you need? Or, we see ourselves in these uh, conditions of feeling limited or lack, and how often is that something that we're putting effort to show people and give people the resources to be able to live independently? Yes, the government does control, but only to one degree, because you still have a sovereignty. You still have the ability to work the ground that you live off of. And I love that idea. My brother and had mentioned that to us just this week about, getting a compound, building, as long as it's by water, because he's a fisherman. He loves to fish. But he's like, yeah, because things are going to change one way or another. This is an evolution of how we live and what rules we follow. And these rules are put in place by the collective consciousness that believes that these rules are right. And then we move ourselves to kind of align to that. But a lot of our rules in America are not right, period. We have the foundation of truth, but it's not enforced, it's not abided by, it's not really for the people. So this is our time to get back on track with that, for sure.
Absolutely. So I'm team bring the family back. We need to really focus on strengthening the family. When we think back to the early America, The entire family lived on the same plot. The entire family worked the same business. And so they were able to grow generational wealth. And I think when we hear candidates like Trump say, make America great again, is getting back to that foundation of how we actually made and produced in America. And so that production coming back to America, I'm excited to see what that looks like. I'm excited to see what either candidate gets in office and does. We saw Trump make a lot of power moves the last time he was in office. So I'm curious to see what he does. We know Kamala from her time on the bench is a very strict when it comes to the law. So I'm curious to see what she would do. But regardless of who's in office, maintaining my mental health, mind, body, and soul is what I am doing. And I encourage each and every one of you all to do it. I don't want us to get too long winded tonight because we know this has been a heavy emotional day. But this was just, our tidbits of information in regards to what's going down. This is a great time to speak out and get your voice heard. And the way you do that is by casting your vote, or coming like we did on our podcast and telling
And
all
just
y'all what we
speaking
think.
about it. Yes. Because, we are subject to whatever we agree to, and that is a place where only you can decide. Only you can decide. No matter who becomes the next president of the United States, we have an obligation to ourselves to show up in our brightest light and see our future so very bright. So until next time, we
We
are
are
the Soul
soul
Sisters,
sisters speaking out.
speaking out and fixing crowns in the process. Peace and love.
Toodles.
That was good.